People who grew up in third world countries, what was the biggest shock for you when moving into a developed country? At Song, an African man who was staying with me came rushing in the first week he was staying me and woke me up. He was extremely excited that there was a garbage truck with a motorized arm and was picking up the wheelie bins as it went down the street. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? He kept exclaiming over and over again. Amazing. Amazing. It made me laugh very hard, but he was a lovely guy. That things would get fixed. I had a vending machine in my dorm building. It broke down and said Welsh, guess no more vending machine. Absolutely flabbergasted when I saw the machine repaired and working. In my school, we have vending machines in the cafeteria. My money got stuck inside and I was told I could call Coca-Cola for a refund. They asked me some questions, and they sent a person to fix it, and they're mailing me 2 coupons for free drinks. How things actually work. You can rely on your electricity not going out at least twice a day. If you buy something and it breaks, there's warranty with little to no hassle. Internet actually works more than it doesn't. Public transportation actually arrives, and shockingly, it does on time. If you hire a service, it'll actually be done and with an expectation of quality. The list goes on. Of course it's not perfect and there's shy people everywhere, but that's the exception, not the rule. And it's a massive difference. This is a bit of a cop-out that I answer because I usually live in wealthy countries, but I lived in a small town in Bolivia for 18 months, and the 2 unexpected things that got to me when we left was cars everywhere, going to the toilet without it being an ordeal, and seeing your reflection. Such a weird thing. We lived in grass roof huts, so the only time you'd see your reflection would be in our tiny mirror. There's no glass or bathroom mirrors. I'm not vain, but it was very strange to suddenly see what I look like all the time. I had lost about 25 kgs, 55 pounds, while I was there, so that was even stranger. I've spent a good deal of time in Swaziland working with kids, only to learn that most of them had never seen their own faces for the same reason. It's really fun to take an iPad and use the selfie camera to take videos of the kids. They get very giggly and kinda sheepish, but even the shy kids push and shove to get a glimpse of themselves. I visited Germany once with my family. We were about to cross the road when a Porsche came racing through. Living in India, we experience daily traffic mishaps and there is negligible concern regarding pedestrian safety and courtesy. So we were actually shocked when the driver literally halted to a stop and insisted on us crossing the road. There was no traffic light, no zebra crossings, nothing, and we actually were used to letting cars pass by before walking. So this was the biggest shock to us. People's personal space is surprisingly vast. A newspaper article suggested that the personal distance between strangers in Argentina is the same as that of a couple in Canada. The lights. So many lights, from street lamps, traffic lights, huge buildings lit up all night. Oh, and the highways blew my mind. They were so wide and full of so many cars. I was 6 and I'll never forget that first drive from the airport to my new home in December. It was also my first time seeing snow. I went to rural Kenya for work once and the lack of lights was the first thing I noticed. I grew up in a very small town, out in the county in the United States, so I was used to less light pollution than most people here. But I'd never experienced anything like this. Just a total lack of any electric lights for miles and miles. People are actually, not ironically, nice to each other. Coming from Soviet Shol where every man for himself, it was so unusual. Took me a few years to learn how to smile. My friend told me the only people in the USSR who would smile at strangers were mentally ill or con artists. If a stranger approached you while smiling, you either prepared to run or fight. The postal system. The logistics of delivering millions of letters to millions of homes on a daily basis is astonishing, especially at that price. The idea that I can send a letter across the country and have it reliably delivered the next or possibly even same day is truly impressive. Postal services and the way they develop have always been signatures of a healthy civilization. Genghis Khan was one of the first to employ such services by having a sort of pony express system where messengers would trade off at different postings to allow news to travel fast over his empire. The United States Postal Service helped connect a vast nation in ways unheard of, and provided services to small hamlets as well as large cities. It's what helped people in the boonies stay up to date with the people in the cities. It really helped launch the nation into the modern era early on by connecting people and allowing news to disseminate much farther, much faster. I grew up in South Africa and have been living in England for 20 years. Cars stop when you walk up to a pedestrian crossing. Double glazed windows are really good at keeping the warm in and the noise out. I can walk around at night without thinking I'm going to get shot or robbed. There are only a few people on building sites and the buildings get built in a quick and organized manner. When things break, someone will come and fix it. I visited my cousins in the US once. I was surprised that your houses don't have walls around them. There were only those fences at the side and back that pretty much anyone can jump over. Where I live, the only houses who don't have walls surrounding them are those in compounds or subdivisions that have roaming security guards. Paid security guards, not volunteers like the neighborhood watch kind of thing. How old the houses are. I was expecting modern construction like in my country, but I instead saw old buildings which, ironically, valued more than even the more modern ones. You've got so much fresh water, you should it. How little theft there is. I was always told to always mind my bag and make it clear I'm holding it tight. Now I can freely leave it beside me. Sometimes not even look. I've had friends leave a purse on a table in a restaurant and I made jokes about how easy it would be to steal it. Just a lot more relaxing in public due to less theft. Another one is how less physical fighting in schools there is. From a young age I was always told if someone hits you, hit them back harder, but when we moved to UK my dad told me before my first day of school, if someone hits you, tell the teacher. I am from the USA, but I am currently in South America. Back home there are couples where if one texts the other and they don't respond right away, they assume they don't like them or that they are cheating or something. Here if you text someone and they don't respond, you assume their phone was stolen. I am attending a wedding next week in Buenos Aires and I needed to tell the bride something. She didn't respond. After a couple of days I contacted her mother. Yep, phone stolen. Now she is trying to get in touch with people who are undoubtedly sending her messages. Ugh. The quality of the public infrastructure, and how respectful city planning is with pedestrians. Sydney is full of beautiful little gifts in the shape of shortcuts, stairs, parks, pathways, everywhere. It truly is a joy to just walk through the city. Also, dogs are more polite than people where I come from. Coming from the worst country to a better one, it surprises me how easy it is to do a transaction online. Apply visa, do it online. They will notify you once they need documents, once you are ready, etc. Every step of the process. Pay bills? Fine. Do online banking. Order food, groceries? Do it online. Call for delivery. Schedule for appointment? Call. Do it online. Meanwhile in my country, you need to do all this physically. Fall in line for hours. Registration done, on to the next step, payment. Oh, you need to go to the bank. Collect the receipt and come back here. You want to do it online? Good luck with the shitty websites and slow internet. I could go on and on. It's day and night comparison. Lack of a local warlord. They're called police chief or sheriff. Giant grocery stores are full of food and always fully stocked. Coming from Ukraine to USA in the 90s, my entire family's jaws dropped for hours. Ha. My dad's from Munich and my mom's from Krakow, when the stories about their childhoods are sometimes so different because of that. Like my mom will tell you how oranges were a delicacy that you only had for special occasions, while my dad will be like, oh, when we were bored we used to throw them at each other for fun. Being able to walk around the city while using my phone. If I use it where I live, I get murdered or kidnapped over a phone. Honduran. There wasn't too much of a disparity between what I knew and what was directly spoken to me compared to what was portrayed in media regarding the United States. However, the biggest and most glaringly obvious difference was how easy and common a thing it would be to have someone of another ethnic or racial background within arm's reach. My younger self, being more accustomed and familiar with brown skin, walking around Miami International and seeing so many beautiful and new tones of skin was shook. I moved from South Africa to the UK and the fact that you can actually live off minimum wage is just incredible. Pay rent and bills, buy food and slowly furnish your house. It's phenomenal. Also the fact that most of the UK born citizens think this is a terrible place to live is just beyond me. I always get asked why'd I leave sunny South Africa to come to this shithole. They just don't understand how good they've got it. People only compare their lives to what they see around them. You could be in the most prosperous, safest, most advanced nation to ever exist, but if your neighbor makes more money you will still complain. The discipline in driving. In my country, even when the signal light is color red, They just brush it off and continue accelerating. Effing morons. How fast food wasn't $50 per person, but rather $5.10. Also, how much civilization advances when the AC is on all day and everywhere. It's a blessing. AC, the one thing Europe seriously lacks despite being developed. That people don't care at all with the clothes or my overall appearance, weight, hair, etc. In Brazil I always get comments, good or bad, about how I look, mainly from friends or family, but it's common to always talk about it. When I moved to Australia I made friends, and never got a comment about any of these things. It was a big relief to find out that I can be myself and not worry about the tons of comments about something that doesn't matter at all. So much. I'm naturally very pale, and strangers sitting next to me on the bus in Rio would point out that I needed to go to the beach. I love the lack of eye contact in the London Underground. That and, no gunshot sounds. How expensive many things are, while certain things are very cheap, but there's always enough. I grew up in Costa Rica. When I moved to the US, everything was way cheaper. Then I realized how expensive everything in my country is. I mean, $13 for a small pizza is not okay. Not getting suspicious when a stranger talks to you on the street. I can't get over it. I get anxious every time. But people in Canada don't seem to mind at all. Where I come from, when a stranger approaches you, you nope the F out. I'm from South England and no strangers would talk to each other. You'd be considered an absolute lunatic. If you did want to talk about something, you'd have to strike a conversation about something we can all relate to, like the shitty weather. But I've heard about how nice it is in Canada, and my friend was shocked when people just randomly started talking to her on public transport. But she welcomed it. How the smallest inconvenience can make people rant like they have serious depression. Apparently humans always worry about something or the other, like a worry list that always has to have something in it. So even if all your big problems are cleared out, they end up being replaced by the next set of problems, no matter how trivial. Yes, we are like camels, but instead of water we store anxiety. Maybe not a third world country per se, but I've lived in Turkey my whole life, and recently moved to the UK. First off, people here are super cold. They all seem like they want to die. There are also a lot of elderly people, like a lot. The biggest difference was that the crosswalks actually did something. Like you could pass them and cars would stop. If I did anything other than sprint across the road when there were no cars around in Turkey, I'd be mushed by now. The necessity to sprint explained the lack of elderly in Turkey. Everyone's always inside their houses. Back in my country everyone would always go outside. You could see kids playing, old people talking to each other. There's always people outside. Because of that I made a lot of friends. I wake up every morning to see my friends just sitting there outside of their houses, and we would greet and then walk around our neighborhood to meet our new friends, and then we'd talk or play basketball. It was fun. It was much more fun. Then I moved to Japan. I thought just like in my country, kids would always be outside, and I thought I could make friends easily with the neighborhood kids. Turns out, everyone is always inside. The whole neighborhood felt like a ghost town. There were no kids hanging out outside. The place has so many houses, but it felt very empty. Then it hit me. I missed my home. I became homesick. I had no friends. Every day I'm always inside the house, and it was the most boring part of my life. Then it became depression, and just got worse and worse. It has been 6 years. I have a job now. I'm always at home. Bought myself guitars, PS4 and a computer to make myself occupied, but I prefer going outside, meeting and talking with friends. Other than this kind of life, I still miss my previous home. I still miss my previous life. Electricity, water and basic utilities disappearing is not the norm. Police do their job 40% of the time at least, using toilet paper to clean yourself instead of water, which honestly is really gross for me. I don't know why. Our roommate's co-worker is from Guatemala. He says one of the best things about the US is that when you call for an ambulance, one actually shows up even if you aren't rich or important. Most shops close early in the Netherlands compared to my origin country, Malaysia. Even house doctors' clinics close in the weekend, which was unbelievable to me at that time. To meet family members or close friends, We have to make appointment at least 2 weeks in advance, whereas in my origin country, it's normal to just show up at your family members or friend's house with just a single call on the same day or few hours before. Sometimes people just show up unannounced and still being welcomed, even at very odd hours.